Now it's recording. I don't know what happened. Okay, so let's start over. So I'm Dottie Kuntz with the Vancouver, Washington Institute of Noetic Sciences Community Group. And we have a really exciting speaker tonight. We're very happy to have her. And I'm going to ask Ron Thomas to introduce her to us, please.
I feel honored and privileged to introduce Emmy Vadnais. I first became aware of Emmy from New Thinking Aloud with Jeffrey Mishlove, and he interviewed her. And when that happened, I just got some connections in my brain. I was thinking about the wonderful members of both the Portland Ions and the Vancouver Ions group. There are a lot of health practitioners or healing practitioners, a variety of modes. And I have a lot of respect for all of these folks. I appreciate you very much. And I want you to do really well. So Emmy's done really well. And I think that she's not only going to give us a great experience here in intuition specifically, but maybe even share some best practices to help our folks. By the way, there's only 15 participants here tonight, but we do have a very wide range of people who will be coming and watching it on YouTube later. So I'm hoping that everyone enjoys it. The last thing I have to say is that just a couple months ago in November, I took Emmy's intuitive development class. It was 4 sessions, 2 hours, incredibly reasonably priced, and because I am a tightwad. And I got a lot from it. It's very practical. I love the way you present it and how you're organized about it, Emmy. You're definitely hitting on all cylinders. So you wanted a little bit of information you can't find elsewhere about Emmy, but she's got one of the best karaoke song lists I've ever seen. So I'm introducing Emmy now, and enjoy, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Emmy.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Dottie. And it's a pleasure to be with all of you. And just for a little humor, Ron is referring to a New Thinking Aloud live stream where I mentioned some songs that if Jeffrey Mishlove and I were to do a karaoke duet, I suggested some songs that were in the realm of consciousness, the paranormal, spirituality. One of them is The Police, We Are Spirits in a Material World. So just kind of some fun ones, and I listed off many of those. So yes, I'm grateful to be with all of you. I know that all of you are intuitive, and I think many of you do listen to your intuition, and some of you probably quite frequently and already really trust it and already really listen to it. However, a lot of people don't know how they intuit, or they might get information spontaneously and they want to harness their intuition more. And so for tonight, I wanted to share with you how to recognize your intuition. And if there's enough time, and I just want to check in with Dottie and Ron on what I have for time here, I would also like to guide you in some practical exercises as well. So how much time do I have now, Dottie? And when would you like me to go to Q&A?
You can do the questions whenever you feel like it, but do you have a clock there? Because we want to end at 8 o'clock your time, or 8 o'clock our time, so that'd be 9 o'clock your time.
Oh.
So you have an hour and 35
I think you probably mean 10. Okay, so 8.
10, it's 6:24.
It's about 8:30 here now.
Okay.
So
yeah, and it's 6:30 here, so you have an hour and a half.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so that's plenty. All right, wonderful. Well, what I'd like to share is, since it is a small enough group, if anybody wants to chat in questions, if Dottie or Ron, whenever you feel appropriate, if you want to interject yourself to clarify a point, for example, although we could also hold questions till the end because they might be addressed. And what I'd like to do now, if it's okay, is go ahead and share my screen. Is that okay? So let me go back here. So like I mentioned, today we'll be talking about recognize your intuition so that you can rely on it more regularly. And I just want to share briefly a little bit about my background. I am a licensed occupational therapist, and I do work professionally as an intuitive coach, intuitive healer, and I also provide continuing education classes. I have been championing holistic and integrative health in the occupational therapy profession for a number of years. And I also do provide co-hosting with Jeffrey Mishlove on New Thinking Aloud when he won the first place for the best evidence for the continuation of consciousness in the afterlife with the Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies. I had been volunteering with him for about a couple years at that point, and I actually met him by interviewing him. So he invited me to be a guest host, and then after a year, I became his co-host as well. So I just have some websites here. You can, if you want to learn more about my background or my practice, you can go to emmyvadnais.com, or if you want to take any classes, or if you want any consultation or coaching. And then I have the holisticot.org website, and then newthinkingaloud.com will take you to the New Thinking Aloud YouTube channel. And there is also a foundation website that is New Thinking Aloud, and that's ALLOWED.org as well. So just to give you a little overview of what I would like to share with you tonight, I think most of us probably already have a sense of what intuition is, but I hope to bring a little more clarity to what might be sometimes a nebulous or a amorphic or not a very clear topic to people, and also to help you to understand how you may perceive intuition and to trust it, which, by the way, is one of the main ways to continue to receive that connection with your intuition is to be open. People talk about an open channel. And the more that you trust it, the more that you will be able to stay connected to it. We'll talk a little bit about signs and symbols and synchronicities, and we'll get into some activities. And the image at the first slide, and also on the cover of my book, I actually painted this heart because I do believe that connecting with your intuition can be very much like a journey to your own heart, which I know all of you here tonight are very heart-centered people in general. So everything that I'll be talking about here tonight is in my book. If you're interested in learning more, you may get what you need from this talk here, but I just want to let you know that this is also available. And incidentally, Jeffrey Mishlove did write the foreword for that, wrote a beautiful foreword for the book as well. So intuition is usually thought as something that is beyond conscious reasoning. Some people will say it's a way of knowing without knowing how you know. And it can be beyond logic or rational thought, although I am also a fan of logic and rational thought. I certainly don't want to be exclusionary and suggest that intuition is the only way to function in the world, but it is very often underutilized, and we can become distracted in our days. We can be caught up in thoughts, emotions, worrying, planning, which some of those things might be necessary, right? We need to plan our lives, but if we're thinking too much about the past or the future and not really in the present moment, we may miss those subtle messages that we may be receiving. And sometimes intuition can be really strong and keep kind of hitting you over the head. So sometimes it'll just keep being repeated to you. And I do believe that intuition is really equivalent to your own inner wisdom, your inner knowing. And this beautiful image here is a connection between the head and the heart. We think about intuition is sometimes referred to as right brain thinking versus left brain thinking. And there's some science to back that up. But over time, I've tended to connect and recognize it more of being more balanced with your head and your heart versus one being more dominant over the other one. And it's really also aligning with your own soul's truth. And when you align with your intuition, you may be aligning with your own, shall we say, karmic purpose, your own soul's purpose. I had the pleasure of interviewing a couple guests on New Thinking Aloud. One gentleman, Christian Sundberg, who recalls his pre-birth memories, and another gentleman who talked about helping people with their own soul's plan and has done a lot of regressions helping people. And the more I go on with studying and practicing intuition, I do feel that intuition might be sort of like in your life, there might be a plan A of how you might go through your life. There might be plan B, C, D. And when you're more in alignment with your intuition, you may be more in the flow with a more effortless time of going forward. Now, of course, we have challenges, we have opportunities, we can have loss. And I do believe that those also can serve purposes for us to have a deeper understanding or learning in life. But the more that we can align with our intuition, we might be able to, for example, experience less grief when we have loss. For example, I lost both of my parents in the last couple of years after, each of them, I think it was, we'll say about 10 years of them dealing with Alzheimer's, which was sort of them slowly moving, and how I perceive it is moving into another dimension, if you will, from this life to wherever we go from here. And if I didn't have such a deep connection to my intuition, and of course it was sad, but also there were great moments of love and connection. It would be a much more difficult journey, I think, for me. And so I'm able to have more peace with the process. I'm not doing what sometimes is referred to as spiritual bypassing. I've definitely honored my thoughts and feelings in the process, but through connecting with my intuition, I'm able to have more acceptance and peace with what's happens, right? When we go through change, loss, those kinds of things. And incidentally, I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning. I initially, how perfect, I'll suggest this here on my slide about your soul's purpose, how I began getting into studying and practicing intuition more deeply is when I was a new licensed occupational therapist. I quickly became burnt out. I've since learned a new term called moral injury or moral distress, where, and some of you who are healthcare practitioners, I'm sure, can relate, where I wasn't able to practice how I was taught in school. For example, I wanted to do prevention and wellness, but insurance doesn't pay for that. So anyway, the way that I was practicing was not fulfilling for me, to say the least. I did find some other positions that I enjoyed, but I really hit a wall, and I thought, well, what am I going to do with myself? I spent all this money. I went to college. I got this professional degree. I passed my board exam. I'm highly trained and I can do this job well, but I'm not really satisfied. So I had always been interested in something called energy healing. And I learned about a holistic health and wellness center that was right around the corner from where I lived. And I started taking Qigong energy healing classes. And in that process, some of you who maybe practice energy healing or Reiki know that intuition is one of the main components of what you use in order to sense, feel, assess, shift, move, transmute energy. And I also met my intuitive development teacher there. So, and then I had experiences in my life that were really taught me that there's more going on. For example, a lot of people have near-death experiences, and they have an experience and then they come back and then they share the best they can, which they often describe as ineffable. And for me, I had 3 family members come to me in dreams before the mother knew that she was even pregnant. And I knew what they looked like. I knew the gender, I knew their personalities, and who they kind of resembled, who were already existing family members. So for me, I thought there's more going on here. So I went deeper into this, and in my energy healing training, I mean, that's just a term, energy healing, but really I was using my intuition to assess people. Frequently, I would be able to receive information through images, through messages, through being able to sense, kind of like X-ray vision, where the energy was flowing or constricted in and around their bodies, where they might not have told me on a health intake form. And I know now there's a whole profession on medical intuitives. And that really taught me that we can know information in ways that aren't typically taught in school and in our culture. So just to kind of give you a little more background there. So where does intuition come from? Some people may say, well, it comes from the third eye. If you just meditate on the third eye, you'll be more intuitive, or it's in the heart, or intuition really is God speaking to me, or it's angels or guides or messengers. And so for me, where I'm at in my journey, and you may have a different take on this, I really do feel that intuition is the connection to the oneness of which we're all a part. And just like how there is the theory that our brain acts as a reducing valve or as a filter for our consciousness and a lens of what we're able to perceive, I believe that when we connect with our intuition, we're able to connect to greater information. And there's been studies of people who have been hooked up to different devices. And a great case, which many of you know about, I'll share in just a minute, also illustrates this, that when we go into deep meditative states, we can actually kind of turn the brain off, and then we can open up to more than just ourselves. Many of you probably are familiar with Eben Alexander. He's probably one of the most well-known near-death experiencers, who was a brain surgeon, a neurosurgeon, and he contracted meningitis where he was in the ICU for 6 days. And for what we understand now in science, there's no way that he would have been able to have the conscious experiences that he had. And he also had an experience, and I'm not going to spoil the story if any of you haven't read his bestseller, Proof of Heaven, I believe is his title of his book, that he was able to connect with an individual in his life who he didn't even know existed. And so this is where intuition can speak to us in really sometimes subtle and profound ways. We can also think of intuition as the higher self. Now, then one says, well, maybe there's the lower self. And by higher self, that just means that, again, kind of going back to connecting with more of yourself, or connecting with a greater all, that you're in a state maybe of vibration or frequency of being able to align with this part of yourself where you can access this information. Okay, thank you, Ron. Confirming that, yeah. And as I was saying earlier, as far as the higher self, again, intuition can come spontaneously, like my precognitive dreams that I had. And this is how a lot of people kind of start getting interested in these topics. They have inexplicable experiences that they're like, well, how did that happen? Or why did that happen? And also, you can allow yourself to quiet the mind and work through emotions, or step back from emotions, and practices such as like mindfulness, where you're not caught up in what's happening in your life, and you're able to step back with more loving compassion, awareness. and be able to be in that state of consciousness where you can access more of your intuition. So people frequently will say, well, I think I know what my intuition is, but how do I trust it, and how do I listen to it more? And so my suggestion to you is that hindsight can be 20/20, as we know, right? Because we can go through experiences in life, and then we can have a perspective in the rearview mirror of, oh, that's why that happened, or I could have done this differently, or I did handle that well. So I would encourage you all to think right now, when was a time in your life where you had an experience and you knew you should have listened to your intuition, but you didn't? I think we've all been there. And if anybody wants to chat in an experience, or if not, that's fine. We can share more at the end. And how did you know in that experience, oh, my gut told me, or I had a feeling, or I just knew something wasn't right, but I just overrode it anyway? So when you think about those experiences, what was active for you? What senses were active for you that told you that that was your intuition? And then, when was an experience in your life where, in hindsight, you listened to your intuition? You knew that something felt right and you went for it. And an example in that, in my life, I can share both if you want, but as far as something positive, for me, it was, one example is going to college. I just knew that it was the right university. I knew it was what I wanted to study, and everything just lined up. And once I got into the program, sure, it was a lot of hard work, but I really enjoyed the content and had a great experience. So hopefully that can give you some ways of beginning to think about how you know when your intuition speaks to you. Some other examples are, people might say, I can feel the hair on the back of my neck or my arms standing up, or I might get a tingling up and down my spine. So those are just some ways. Some people are dreamers, and you might get information in your dreams, or you may be hearing messages. For example, you might be, this happened to me one time, you might be in the car driving and you hear a particular, somebody saying something on the radio, or maybe something you're listening to, and then maybe you go into a store and you hear the same song. Or perhaps there's someone in your life who is sharing something with you, and then you spend time with another person, and they, unbeknownst to what's maybe going on for you, at least verbally, they're sharing similar messages for you. And so these might be repeated to you over and over. And so that's an opportunity to pay attention to that. Okay. So this is actually a page in or a section in my book, Benefits of Intuition. I'm not going to read through all of them, but I think that I'm just going to highlight a few of them, and you can certainly look through what stands out to you. But I think one of the most profound ways it's assisted me in my life is for insight, direction, making decisions, living with more meaning and purpose. I do think that when we're in alignment with our intuition, we're living on purpose with more meaning and purpose. And it can also help with problem solving and innovation or creativity as well. One of the other gifts I think intuition can provide is that it can build a stronger relationship with yourself. You can have greater trust within yourself, greater self-confidence, more self-esteem, and therefore you can love and accept yourself more. And then you can in turn love and accept others and have better relationships with others in your life. And I think many of you are probably fans of how, this is just a term again, but how everything is a frequency, or energy. And so how we are in our own consciousness and state of being directly impacts others, and what we draw to us in life, what we might repel to within ourselves or from ourselves. And so I've seen time and time again, not only in teaching people to strengthen their intuition, but also in my practice of helping people heal past wounds, that when that happens and the beliefs about yourself or their self began to change, the energy changes. And so other opportunities, like Ron was saying at the beginning, you know, I want things to go well for you. And so when we do trust our intuition more, and when we do heal past wounds, we can be more in the flow, and we can be more, again, in alignment with what really speaks to us and what will bring us more love, joy, and peace in life for ourselves and with others. And one of the other areas I want to highlight with intuition that we'll get into a little bit more as we keep going forward here is that many of the ways to cultivate intuition or harness it, be with it more often, also can assist with health and wellness and prevention. So for example, we'll get into a little bit about talking about meditation, which is just a word. And I know some people who don't have a regular practice sometimes get a little concerned that for a few different reasons, which we can talk a little bit more about. But as we engage in activities that can cultivate intuition, they also can help with our stress levels, because some of the, well, all the methods that really help you cultivate your intuition can also lower stress, anxiety, symptoms of trauma, depression. And so as you move forward with whatever you're drawn to, you know, this talk here today, there may be 1 to 3 items that really you think, I want to incorporate this more into my life, that as you continue to cultivate that, you will live a healthier life. You will live with more joy and wellness, and be able to get the benefits of intuition as well. So how do you perceive intuition? And this is a non-exhaustive list. There's probably other ways that I don't have on here for sure, but some may be that you might receive intuition through your own thoughts. It may come to you through your emotions. And emotions is kind of an interesting one, because our emotions can sometimes be a barrier for intuition, and sometimes our intuition actually speaks to us through our emotions. One example is that if we might feel sad about something, or considering maybe a move or a relationship, either going into or out of a relationship, or into or out of a job or a volunteer position or something like that, or maybe there's fear involved, is the word that can be helpful with this is discerning. Is this my emotions that really is some type of past hurt or unresolved grief or loss? Or is this my intuition, really fear that's telling me I need to pay attention to this? You know, so that's one that can really keep you cultivating your intuition, and then that will get stronger in time as well. Senses, so you might have a gut feeling. Many of you might be, or probably are, empathic, also known as highly sensitive people. I definitely fall in that category. In fact, for me, I think, and this is true for a lot of people, some people, they need to actually be able to even know how they intuit. And some people are doing it so much, they need to kind of like get a break from it a little bit and have it kind of simmer down. And that was me. I was so open. I could walk into a room and I could tell you what everybody was feeling, probably their thoughts, if, you know, out of respect, but just if somebody asked me, I was so in tune that it was overwhelming for me, actually. So that was why the energy healing practices were also beneficial in that regard. And so we'll get into a little bit more about some of these senses here when we talk about the clairs, but just to kind of give you some ideas of how you might intuit. So again, dreams, There's a whole way of working with dreams. Sometimes they can happen spontaneously. Sometimes you can also do dream incubation with intention. And then of course, telepathy or ESP. You know, how many times have you been maybe with a close loved one, a sibling, a family member, a close friend, soulmate, a partner, and this happens with my husband and myself. Sometimes I might say, I really would like to have tacos this weekend, and he'll say, or we'll have come home from the grocery store with taco ingredients. So those kinds of telepathic messages are also a form of intuition. And of course, there's precognition and signs and symbols that we'll get into as well. So I'm sure you may have heard of the clairs, which means clear in French. And this really gets into the senses again. So just let me just say this for a moment. We have our 5 senses. Some people refer to intuition as the 6th sense. I want to also offer that your senses may also be a way for you to perceive intuition. Okay, so we'll do an exercise a little bit later that will help you harness this a little bit more and get more insight into what senses might be more active for you. So clairvoyance is clear seeing, and this may be seeing things like in the physical world, or you might see with inner sight or insight. So images when you are dreaming or awake or when you are asleep. So for example, when I provide energy healing sessions, or if I do like an intuitive assessment or AKA reading for somebody, I will actually see images in or around their body. I will see where the energy is flowing or where it's not flowing as well. And so that developed over time, but because at first it was just, I was barely able to just kind of sense with my hands the energy around a person's body without touching them. But in time, I started hearing words and I started actually seeing how I just described. Clairaudience is clear hearing, so you might hear messages a little bit different than your own thoughts, but you might be, or it could be your own thoughts, but you're hearing information. And another way to think of intuition is that it's receiving information or allowing yourself to get quiet enough so that you can sense what's there. Clairgustance, clear tasting, you might have tastes in your mouth, or something might taste good or not taste good to you when you think of it. Clairalience, clear smelling, you might have smells that indicate an intuitive message. And then clairsentience, clear feeling. And this is where those who are empaths are more likely to experience. You may actually experience something that feels really good to you in your body or doesn't feel good. Or you might find that you kind of lean toward something or an individual, or you lean away. And there's many ways to sense within your body. And also, you may be a person who is highly perceptive to other people's thoughts, feelings, or emotions as well. And that may also be in the realm of feeling. And you might also hear messages from others as well. So there are many ways to connect with intuition. And again, this is a list from my book. I'm not going to read all of them. You can certainly kind of scan through this list yourself. But like I said earlier, quieting the mind, quieting the body, being more still, although you can actually have your intuition active if you are maybe going for a walk or jogging or something. If that resonates with you, that kind of activity, maybe going for a bike ride, or maybe a motorcycle is your thing. But to really cultivate it, I highly suggest that you consider having some type of time set aside a few times a week, getting to the point of daily where you can really quiet the mind. For some people, that's formal meditation. And I'm a fan of formal meditation, but it's not for everybody, meaning that some people might, or let me rephrase that. You want to select one or experiment with enough forms so that you find the one that works best for you. And for some people, that's just sitting and following the breath. It may be meditating on the heart, cultivating love. And there's various forms of guided imagery, or it might be prayer for you. And it's really allowing yourself to get into a state of more being and non-doing. For example, I have gardening on here. I love gardening and I love being in nature. I think most of us love being in nature. So even you could just go out and sit in nature or be in nature, or if you're not able to physically be in nature, seeing images of nature can also help you get into that state of consciousness of just allowing yourself to simply be. So I have some other, toning, singing, dancing, going for a walk, cooking, receiving massage therapy, body work, allowing you to get into more of that relaxed state. And that's what this image is about here. This is a painting from a woman named Ellen Schaefer who painted this for my book. And I just say here that intuition often occurs in the relaxation response state, which is a meditative or peaceful state that has its own healing benefits. Some of you may know of a physician named Dr. Herbert Benson who actually coined the term the relaxation response. And he was a cardiologist who practiced at a hospital associated with Harvard Medical School. And he found that his patients' blood pressure would increase when they would come into the doctor's office. And so he wanted to find a way to help people with being more relaxed. And we kind of take this for granted now, but we now know that we can, in many cases, not all, but in many cases, help lower blood pressure, heart rate, breath rate through mind-body practices, meditation. And he developed a whole protocol for getting into this relaxation response state. And he studied nuns and monks and meditators. So it kind of comes all full circle. But his research has gone so far, and this is where there's a connection between what can help you cultivate your intuition and also support your health, with a method called the Benson-Henry protocol, where you first allow yourself to get into a relaxation response state through meditation, through taking a bath, going for a walk, something that can help you feel more calm. And then the second phase is where you imagine yourself free of, if you have a health condition or in the optimal state you would like to be in, which is sort of similar actually to the law of attraction, of manifestation. And what he and his colleagues have found is he wrote a whole book called The Relaxation Revolution, showing research studies that by doing this, you can actually impact the way the genes are expressed. Meaning that when we're stressed repeatedly, either through high peaks of stress, trauma, or repeated low doses, or a combination thereof, over time, our genes can express negatively for what we might be predisposed for as far as an illness or disease. And he found by people regularly inducing the relaxation response and then also visualizing their optimal state, that in a lot of cases, they were able to reverse diseases. So I also just want to offer that I'm not suggesting that this is a panacea and that can cure all illnesses. However, if you are not engaged in these kind of practices and want to be healthy, or if you have a health condition, which most people have something they're dealing with, that this could be a way for you to optimize your situation. Let's see here. Oh, somebody said they'll add swimming to the list. Fun, definitely. Okay, so just to highlight again about how when your thoughts and mind and emotions are more clear, you can have better decision making. I don't think that's a news flash. However, when you really do sit or allow yourself to be more calm, you can allow, and actually Lao-Tzu in the Tao Te Ching has a quote about this, can you sit long enough to let the mud in your mind become clear so the water can settle and the right answer can make itself known, essentially. I'm paraphrasing. So the right answer arises by itself, I think is the exact quote with that. And this is why I want to do a little experiential today, because I can keep talking about this, but it's very different when you actually experience it. So as I was mentioning earlier, that when you're working with your intuition, cultivating it, to just trust what's coming to you and play with it a little bit. Some examples of how you can play with it would be if you are wanting to select an event to attend, a show or a movie to watch, to when you maybe look at the cover or the promotional material, how do you feel? What senses are active? What do you notice about that? What either draws you or repels you from it? If you hear the phone ring, or more accurately for our modern time, if you hear a text ding or an email pop up and you haven't seen who the sender is, to allow yourself to sense who might this be from and allow that to strengthen. So like I was saying, intuition can come as flashes of insight. It could become as repeated messages in your external world, or maybe information you're reading or listening to. It may come as clear messages, and it can also come in the form of symbols, which may be a language of intuition. And so I have a dove here, and this represents peace. Now, if you are working with dreams, if you're working with divinatory tools, and we'll cover some of those here tonight, you want to evaluate the symbol based on your own situation. And for any of you who've ever worked with, for example, tarot cards, a lot of times, like a store-bought tarot deck, they'll have a little booklet included. And the ones that I really appreciate, if they have enough print space to do this, is that they'll say, when you're working with the cards, use the intuitive method of what do you notice when you look at these images? What stands out for you? What strikes you? What draws your attention? And pay attention. What do you think it's saying to you? What is it conveying to you? And then if you want, you can go and read what the pre-written description is for that particular image on the card. So like I was saying, you might receive information in dreams. It can happen spontaneously. Some of you are probably familiar with dream incubation. I've had the great pleasure of interviewing several people on New Thinking Aloud who are experts in dream incubation. And essentially, it's having an intention that you will have a dream, maybe to get insight into a situation or to help you understand something that's been eluding you, or perhaps even to answer a question you might have. And you can have set up even like a little mini ritual around that. You might spend a few days cultivating your intention with that. You can write down it's recommended with the folks I've talked to that you write down your question of what you want to get insight into. You could even put the question under your pillow at night when you sleep, or you could put an image that represents what your inquiry is about under your pillow at night when you sleep, so that when you are sleeping at night, your focus and intention is allowing that information to come to you and to provide more clarity for you. So just a reminder that just suggesting about how we want to quiet the mind and get into a more peaceful state of being, which I understand is not always an easy task. I certainly understand that, and have had my fair share of stressful moments and anxious moments in my life. But I will say that I now begin my days with a very brief or more lengthy meditation and yoga practice. And it really does set the tone for my day. I used to drive on the interstate into Minneapolis and work at a hospital. And so my lifestyle, even though I did meditate then, and I was very deeply in a lot of these processes, it wasn't until I was able to create a lifestyle that I could have a little bit more space in the morning for myself. And for you, it might be different. You might prefer to have a meditation practice over the noon hour, or you might prefer to do this before you go to bed at night. But being able to have a meditation, prayer, or some type of ritual to help you align with your intuition, and maybe even creating a space, if you don't already have this in your own home environment or wherever you would like to have that, so that you can allow yourself to get into that state of being more easily and readily. It might be the same time of day, roughly, and you can put nice things in your environment. You might have, it might be quiet. You might want to have maybe a fountain. Some people like to burn a candle, but there are ways to make it really pleasurable. I also got to talk with a gentleman who is a shaman from South Africa, and he talked about just having a cup of tea and allowing yourself to sit as long as you have that tea, so that it isn't just about the time, but you're really enjoying those moments with yourself. And I included this image because, again, I think nature is so healing, restorative, and a great way for us to connect with our intuition, especially how much we're connected to devices throughout the day. And this is an image of a labyrinth. And I don't know if any of you have had a chance to walk a labyrinth, and I have, and it's very lovely. And you can set an intention, or maybe a question you might have, or something you want to get some deeper insight into. Walk through the labyrinth, get to the center, which is also a metaphor for all of us, right? Getting to our center, and then walk back out. And when you come out, notice what happened. There's also finger labyrinths if you don't have a chance to actually walk one, or just simply being in nature. And I mentioned nature as well because I've had the fortune of guiding lots and lots of people in guided meditation and guided imagery, and one we'll do tonight. And one is a special place imagery, and most people go to some place in nature as a place that is sort of like a mini vacation or a restorative place. You may find that your intuition helps strengthen your own sense of spirituality and religion, or you might find that your own beliefs, your own spiritual practices, your own religious practices can connect you more with your intuition. In fact, some might even say that intuition is equivalent to what they may perceive as God. And also, I just want to add too, kind of connecting back to the relaxation response, there's also research that shows that when people get more into the relaxation response state, which can happen in the various activities I've mentioned, that people report in many cases feeling a connection to something greater than themselves, which is a beautiful way to be with your intuition. So I mentioned how I went to formal energy healing training in medical Qigong. You may or may not choose to go that path. Some of you might actually already be certified in some type of energy healing practice. But I just want to offer that it's a really lovely way for you to also be with your intuition, is to learn to sense and cultivate your own energy as well. And there's many ways to do that. I have on my YouTube channel a chakra meditation, And by the way, I have on my YouTube channel, you can just search for Emmy Vadnais or go to emmyvadnais.com and there should be a link to my YouTube channel. I have a lot of free guided meditations on there. And I have a whole playlist actually on intuitive development where you can listen to talks I've given. And I think some people I've interviewed as well, as a resource. Of course, yoga is a whole path of connecting to the oneness, to the all. And so that's a beautiful path if that interests you. Some of you probably already are practicing yoga. And if it appeals to you, of course. And then I really like this image because this is just taking the previous slide a little further with the chakras and showing the auric field, the energy field, and how we are connected through the seventh chakra, the root chakra, so the crown chakra, with the yin and the yang energies. And that this was what in my initial classes with energy healing, we worked with cultivating our own energy this way. And this was a great way to sense and feel intuition and also be healthy and well. Some other divination tools are, for example, a pendulum, which if you haven't played with those are kind of fun to play with, and you can ask yes, no questions, and there's a whole way you can work with those. But I just wanted to mention that these are great ways not only for accessing this information, but helping to get into kind of the state of consciousness with your intuition. I Ching is another example. I know I mentioned tarot cards as well, of giving insight into your life with an inquiry you might have by throwing coins, and then you get these hexagrams, the trigrams, which are the lines that are solid, are the yang lines, and then the dashes are the yin. So it's a way of receiving information if that appeals to you. There was a time where I spent a lot of time with the I Ching, and it's a beautiful method it's just another lens. And then creativity. Intuition not only can enhance your creativity, at the same time, on the flip side, really, of the same coin, the more creative, the more you engage in creative projects and art projects, listening to music, playing music, drawing, painting, sculpture, cooking, whatever it is that's creative for you, that really absorbs your attention and allows you to get into that state of flow. That is intuition. So if you are looking for an excuse to embark more on a creative project that you would really enjoy, I highly encourage you to make time to do that. So, of course, art is connecting with your own images. You may make a painting or create something that connects you with that speaks to you. And through guided meditation, guided imagery, you may allow images to come forward in your mind related to an intention or a question. And I actually have a recorded inner wisdom guided imagery that you might enjoy on my YouTube channel as well, that allows you to ask questions and allow images to speak to you in your own mind and body and consciousness. So in my book and in my classes, I teach people how to make their own intuitive cards. This was taught to me by my intuitive teacher, Betty Ann Ertwine. It was one of my first tools. In addition to energy healing and meditation, I worked a lot with my own intuitive cards. Mine initially were just stick figures. And so over the years, I wish I had photos of all the people who I've taught to make cards. And this is also from Ellen Schaefer, who made the other painting of the person meditating. She made these cards, and these are just examples of what an intuitive card deck might look like. But essentially, you go into a meditative state. You allow images to come forward or words to come forward. You can make a list of 20 or 50 or 52. My teacher had us do 52 cards, as similar to playing card deck. And then you write down the words, and then you create cards that correlate to those words. And then you can actually ask questions and work with these cards like you would with a tarot deck. And what's lovely about this, and I'm a fan of different tarot decks. I think they all have unique personalities and they're a joy. When you work with your own cards or make your own cards, you're really working with your own psyche, your own consciousness, your soul. And so it's you speaking back to yourself in the context of your intention or your question. And so I just mentioned here a little bit about how you can interpret symbols. And when I'm teaching people how to work with their intuitive cards, or if they did have a dream and an image came, or if they are meditating and an image came, or if you are out in nature and you see an image that really captivates your attention and you're wanting to understand it more, these are just some ways that you can work with an image to just allow yourself to really meditate upon it and notice the obvious, the details, the color, the shape, the texture. What qualities or characteristics do you feel it has? What do you feel it's communicating to you or conveying to you? How do you feel when you look at it? What emotions do you experience? Noticing all of your senses. And then of course you can also go to, look online. There used to be, before the internet was so prevalent, there were dream interpretation books that would help you understand symbols. But then you can also look up your image and see what it might say about it and see if that resonates with you. And then you want to discern what feels right. This is a scribble drawing. When I was going through a challenging time, if you don't want to make a whole deck, you can just take a piece of paper and scribble with your eyes closed. And then after you scribble for about a minute, you can look at the piece of paper, you can turn it in different directions and notice what image or images might come forward. And then you can darken it or shade it in more. And for me, very clearly, this says love. So that was the answer to my question. But I've used this many times, and it's a great way to access your intuition and what you already know. And again, highlighting how intuition can help you with greater meaning and purpose in life, to live on purpose within your own self. And like I mentioned earlier, that your intuition can help you actually see more clearly. Like we mentioned with the clairs, it can help you with maybe limiting beliefs, to have more strong positive beliefs with healing, transformation, and wellness. And as you perhaps, if you are going through some type of loss, or if you are healing past wounds, as you move through those, you're going to be able to see more clearly with your intuition as well. And I just want to make a note that mindfulness has gotten very popular. And some of you probably know that mindfulness comes from the Buddhist meditation Vipassana, and Vipassana means clear seeing. So really as I had the pleasure of interviewing Robert Thurman, who is really a leading world Buddhist scholar on Tibetan Buddhism, and he talks about seeing reality. And so one could argue that intuition is seeing what's really true. It's another message there about having a practice. And I want to note on, maybe a couple notes on meditation, that again, if you don't already have a practice, to find one that you enjoy. So if that's maybe just sitting and listening to some pleasant music for 5 minutes, maybe it's sitting and sipping and looking out the window and staring out at the clouds. Perhaps it is getting into more of a disciplined meditation and discipline isn't a bad thing. It doesn't have to be just boring or monotonous, but actually allowing yourself to really settle the mind, the body, and enjoy that. And the more that you experience that, the more that you'll want to do that more regularly. And in my experience, the more frequently you engage in practices that can quiet the mind, like meditation, the more intuitive you will be. very likely. So I have a few exercises here that we can do. How are we doing for time, Dottie?
It's 20 after. So you have 40, 40 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very generous. All right.
Mhm.
Well, I think
Yeah.
what I'll do since, oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, so we can leave a few minutes at the end for some questions.
Good point. We will
Mhm.
do that. Thank you for the reminder.
Mhm.
What I'll do is I'll just share these last few slides and then we'll do some practices since I've got this open here. So abdominal breathing, we'll just do a little breath work to connect within, and let's see what other ones I've here. We'll do a little progressive relaxation. These are for those who like, I have both people who like cats and people who like dogs, although these are my dogs on the right. They're kind of like cat dogs. Those are Chihuahuas. That's Toby and Lola. So we'll do a little relaxation and then I'll guide you to a special place. And also, I just want to mention that if anybody who's listening to this who may be driving, to not listen to this part until you are in a place where you are not engaged in activity that requires your full attention so that you can be safe. And then we'll do a little heart meditation. I'm not sure that we're going to have time to do this tonight here, but well, since it's here, I'll go ahead and mention that some people think about automatic writing as like some type of spirit taking over. And I know there are some mediums who do that, but what I'm suggesting with automatic writing here is that if you wanted to tonight, after we do a little meditating, if you have a question in mind, is that you can just write and listen and write down whatever information comes forward about your question. So we'll do the special place imagery, and then we will do a little heart meditation around an issue or question you might have. And then this is just a note that with intuition can be a guide. It can be a way to receive information, but we can also then take whatever we receive and we can intend what we want to have manifest to happen. And that is also a way to create the life that you want to be in alignment with. And for me, some may not agree with this, but I do believe that love and intuition are very closely connected, if not synonymous. The more that we can connect with our hearts, step back from judgment of ourselves and others, and more fully be in a compassionate place, we're going to have more spaciousness with what we know and how we go forward. So I really do believe that intuition is a journey to the heart. And I just want to mention for those of you who might be interested that I'm launching an intuitive connections community on February 1st. And so I'll be offering, should I have a sip of water here? I'll be offering different benefits. So if you head on over to emmyvadnais.com, you can learn more about that. And so we'll be meeting once a month and I'll be guiding you in how to cultivate your intuition with practice groups, with group coaching, and then you get discounts with different services with me if that appeals to you. And then here's my website, emmyvadnais.com. Okay. Actually, thanks, Ron. I think I want to pause for a moment and just see if there are any questions now before we get into some of the practices. How does that sound?
That sounds great. I'm going to put it on gallery view so people can see who's asking the question. Does
Wonderful.
anybody have a question? If you do, just raise your hand or press the little hand raising button at the bottom. Heather.
No, I don't have a question.
Heather, do you have a question?
No, I think, sorry, I think my cat hit my mute button.
Okay.
Cat has a question.
Your cat has a question, I see.
Oh, she probably does.
Can
Cat
you
signal, perhaps.
announce? Okay, well, let's just go back to the. looks like
Okay.
Nobody has a question at the moment.
All right. So I invite those of you who are in a static environment, and I think all of us here live tonight are in areas that are relatively free of distraction. If not, I would encourage you to silence your devices, and you can sit comfortably. If you feel like you won't fall asleep, you can recline or lie down. And when you're ready, you can just bring your awareness to your breath and just notice how you're breathing. And when you breathe in, allow your abdomen to expand out, the chest to fill, the lungs to fill. And when you breathe out, allow the chest to come back toward your body and the abdomen. So breathing in, the abdomen expands, the lungs fill. And then exhale, letting the chest come back toward the body and then the abdomen. So what we're doing, some of you probably are familiar, this is also known as diaphragmatic breathing. It's allowing the diaphragm, which is the muscle below the rib cage, to drop so your lungs actually fill more. And by doing kind of nice, slow, rhythmic breaths, we can shift the brain waves. We can shift the physiology of the body. We can shift the thoughts and allow them to slow down and become more spacious. Can lower heart rate and breath rate. So just continuing to breathe nice, gentle, full breaths in and out at your own pace. And then dropping your shoulders away from your ears. And noticing where you may be holding any stress or tension in your body. In your joints, the muscles, the tissues, the cells. And with each breath out, just letting that go physically. And perhaps even imagine any tension you might be holding just melt into the earth below you. And go ahead and bring your awareness to the top of your head. And allow or invite an image or a feeling of something that's peaceful, comforting, or relaxing for you to come into your body. It could be a color, a sense of or a feeling of warmth. You could even visualize the sunlight or the moonlight. To just gently move down the sides, the back, and the front of your head. And also into your mind, quieting the mind. Softening the muscles around your face, your forehead, around your eyes, your cheeks, your jaw. You might even find it helpful to loosen your jaw so your teeth aren't clenched. And you may even want to place the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth behind your front teeth. Letting this image or feeling, or you can just simply do what's sometimes known as a body scan, just observing these parts of your body from a place of non-judgment as this moves down into your neck and your throat, into your shoulders, down into your upper arms. And if your mind wanders, which is very normal and natural, just have an oh well attitude and bring your attention back to what you're focusing on. No matter how many times that happens, let this move through your elbows into your forearms, your wrists, your hands, and every finger and thumb. Not forcing or trying to make anything happen. Like relaxation, just let it occur at its own pace. Bring your awareness back to the back of your head and neck and let it move down your spine into the corresponding back muscles of your upper back and shoulders, the middle back. Just releasing any tension that might be stored here, your lower back. And just know that by taking this time for yourself, whatever you might have on your to-do list will be accomplished more easily by taking this time for yourself. Bring your awareness now to the front of your neck and throat, allowing this image or feeling to move down the front of your body, to your chest, your heart, and lungs, into your abdomen and all of your internal organs, letting them function more smoothly, efficiently, and effortlessly. As this moves down into the pelvic area, the hips, the upper legs, through the knees, into the lower legs, ankles, your feet, and every toe. Now take a moment and notice where in your body you feel really calm, relaxed, or peaceful, maybe even imperceptible. It's so quiet. Notice where you might perhaps be holding any tension, discomfort. And just with your own intention, allow the part of you that's more relaxed to share, spread, or move to this other part of you that wants to relax a little bit further. And when you're ready, imagine being someplace special or peaceful. This can be someplace you've been to before or someplace you would like to visit. It can be a real or an imaginary place. And when you find yourself there, just notice what you see in this place. Notice what time of day. Is it morning, afternoon, evening, or nighttime? Notice the air, the temperature. What you might hear in this place. What you might smell. If there's anything you might taste. And how you feel being in this place. Know that this is your imagination and you can do whatever you would like to do. You can sit, rest, lie down, take a nap. Or perhaps you want to do something more active, like go for a walk, a run, dance, swim, or fly. Whatever it is you'd like to do, go ahead and do it now. Notice how you feel being in this place. You can spend as much time as you would like in this place, or when you're ready, you can gently let these images fade in the background, knowing that you can return to this place anytime you would like to, just by connecting with your breath, your body, relaxing and imagining being there. When you're ready, you can gently come back to your body, your breath, the room, and open your eyes if they were closed. How was that experience?
Relaxing.
Good. I see smiles. I'm smiling too. It was nice. Good. So this may provide, not only is it a great way to, I think, to take like a little mini vacation, kind of reboot the mind and the body and the spirit and all the health benefits, it can also help you connect with your intuition. And furthermore, you can notice which senses were most active for you when you did that exercise. And that may be currently one or some of the ways that you are able to connect with your intuition.
Dottie, I noticed that there was a question in the chat,
Right. I saw it,
Uh,
yeah.
and I wonder if we want to pose that to Emmy and let Summer
Sure.
get an answer to that.
Go ahead and ask it. Did you want to ask it?
Oh, okay, yes, happy to. So this is from Summer, and the question is, Emma, could you speak a bit more about, boy, I can't read. I'm so relaxed. I'll start over. Emma, could you speak a bit more to how your intuition assisted with handling your processing your parents going through their journey with dementia?
Hmm. Well, I would say that there's several answers to that, but I'll just share what comes to mind. One way that's coming to mind for me right now is that I felt that I was able to be more present with my parents when they were going through that process. In that, I think my meditation practices allowed me to be more present with them and to notice when their consciousness, this is how I perceived it, would kind of come in and out, where there might be moments where they were more lucid versus when they seemed to be somewhere else, shall we say. And I think that having had a mindfulness practice, I practice a few different forms of meditation, but that's one of them that I'm a big fan of. That allowed me to, which helps with intuition, that helped me to accept the process of them gradually transitioning in their lives. And
I mean, I work with dementia facilities. I go and play music for the people.
yes.
And I would agree that it's very helpful in just kind of accepting what's happening right now at the moment
Mhm.
as a, sensitive, highly sensitive person.
Mhm.
It's also a very sad situation to be in.
Mhm.
Now, I don't have the baggage of those being my
Yeah.
parents or my grandparents in there. And I have noticed that it's extremely difficult ailment on the people who love them.
Mhm.
They can get as unhealthy
Mm.
as the person who's actually got the disease.
Mm.
And so I think it's a good way to just continue your own wellness as well to be present.
Mm.
Um, so that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ron. And I love that you provide that as a gift to those people and to the family members of bringing joy. And that's what I noticed with my parents, is that there would be times where they would be very present. And I also noticed that, I guess you could say, my observational skills, maybe that comes from just who I am innately, but also with my training as a therapist, and then also cultivating my intuition and through, various practices, like I mentioned, that I was able to, and I was intentionally as present as I could be with them, because I worked as a nursing assistant when I was a teenager before I became an occupational therapist. And I've been an occupational therapist for over 25 plus years now. And so I also professionally have worked with a lot of people with cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's and so forth. And so that was part of, my training and my experience. And so when my parents went through that, I was able to be very observant of their moods, their emotions, and be able to, there's a term, I was able to like co-regulate with them, where I was able to be present, and so that they could feel, hopefully, I love them as much as I could. I just absolutely love my parents. So for them to feel as safe and calm and as joyful as possible. And I also listened, because sometimes they would say words that others might have thought were just sort of random. There's a term called confabulation, that it wasn't quite making sense. But for me, I knew there was something going on for them. So then I would engage them more. And so it allowed me to be more present with them, and for me to, because, life is terminal in a certain way, although it's not really, right? We continue on, but because of my experience in healthcare, working in hospitals and clinics and nursing homes, I've seen a lot of life and death. I wanted to enjoy them. So it helped me to, even though it was sad, right, to go through that loss, it allowed me to feel love in a way I hadn't ever with my parents. We were able to hug and cuddle and play and do things that I didn't get to have maybe as much as a child, or even as in my adult years. And some of you maybe have experienced this yourself you may have had similar experiences. So I don't know if that directly answers intuition, but I think it embodies how I was able to take these skills and bring them into that experience. So thank you for the question. It's made me, I'll probably have more answers I'll think of tonight or tomorrow morning that I wish I would have said now.
I just wanted to also pop in here and just say that One thing I appreciate about what Emmy does in her class and in her book and the way she presents all this is there are actually many, many paths and many ways to do this. And it comes to you in different ways. On that list of, how does it present in my life? I actually can check off quite a few of those different things. It happens in different ways at different times. And what a surprise. Sometimes my intuition has a little funny punchline to it. I'll just share something with everyone. I was thinking about a friend that had a major surgery just this last month, and she's fine home and coalescing now, healing. And I was just doing my morning meditation. I included her in my visualization work, and I was imagining like these tiny little nano light healer beings going into her body and going to where the stuff needed to be healed and all of that. And I was getting more and more nanos zeroing in on it. And when I finally got to those little light beings, here's the punchline. They were little tiny minions, those little guys with the one eye and the goggle on, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
just the cartoon characters. So that's how it works for me. There's always something playful in
Oh
my
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, the joy, to bring the joy. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
Wonderful. I love that.
I see that Claire has a question.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I'm wondering, Emmy, if you have anything for children. I think of a couple of children that I know who are anxious and could really benefit from some good, strong guided meditation.
Yeah, so there are, of course, books written for children, guided meditation books. I think I have one on my bookshelf behind me. I don't know the title off the top of my head right now. But those exist. A couple, so for the one that we just did, the special place imagery could very much be used with children. I think that children as young as 2, 3, probably 3, I would think 2 might not be able to have the attention span, but you can guide them in these in maybe a shorter amount of time, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the most, depending on the child and their ability. You can also have them put they can actually, when I teach people meditation one-to-one in my practice, I often will suggest that people lay down because they can relax the muscles in their body more easily. And so with children, you can, if there's space and it's conducive, you could have them lie down and they can put something on their belly so that you can have like sometimes like maybe a stuffed animal or a stone or, not a heavy stone, but something that's maybe a little bit more engaging for them to focus on, so that you can teach them some breath work to be able to work with their breath and just do some nice gentle breathing, deep breathing. And then another example, so that's 2 examples. The third example would be that if you have, for example, like a singing bowl or like a Tibetan singing bowl, that you can ring it and then have the child pay attention and then just gently raise their hand when they stop hearing it ring. So those would be some examples from a meditation perspective. So there's so much more I could say because my occupational therapy background about children with stress and anxiety, but so that's from the meditative perspective. One of my good friends who's been a pediatric therapist for as long as I've been an OT as well, we went to school together. She also talks about doing activities that, and this is true for what we were talking about earlier with Dr. Herb Benson, where if you exercise or do repetitive exercise. So with children, getting them to move their bodies, and because all of us are so attached to devices, but children are, it's also, well, all of us, but it's very important for them to move their bodies and to get out in nature. And she talks about different ways that you can engage them in activities where they can kind of get their own little workout, if you will. So Are these your children, or what children are you thinking of?
They belong to friends. My background is also speech language pathology, which
cool.
is, and I'm just thinking of a commercial project, a product, if it exists, at a very slower rate of speech for 10, 11, 12-year-olds that they can just plug into.
Oh, okay.
It's just a thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say that when we talk about anybody with stress or anxiety, it's a whole, looking at the whole person, of course, of, I'll just mention a couple things here. And so looking at their home environment and what are they eating? What are they drinking? What are they not eating? What are they not drinking? Do they have a good bedtime routine? And how are the parents functioning? Most of the pediatric therapists I know will often want to work with the parents because that really sets the tone for the whole family. And then, of course, if there's unresolved, if they're actively going through trauma or abuse, so there's a whole lot you'd want to look at with children that we can't, get into all tonight, but those are just some ideas that come to mind. So thanks for
Thank
your
you.
question.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Do we have time for another exercise, Dottie? Do we have 9 minutes? Is my clock?
Yeah, we have 9 minutes.
Perfect. I think we have enough time to do this. So what I'd like to invite you all to do is to think of some light to moderate challenge in your life or something, or maybe even some type of question you would like to get more insight into. And if you have a piece of paper handy and you want to write it down, that will help you get more focused and get more clear with it's the thing with intuition. The more clear your questions or inquiries are, the clearer your guidance will be, your answer, your response will likely be. And then we'll just do about a couple minute heart meditation. So when you're ready, just go ahead and connect back with your body, your breath. Notice how you're feeling. Take a couple gentle, slow, deep breaths in and out. Again, you want to make sure you're not driving and that you're in a place where you're static. And just breathing at your own pace. And bring your awareness to your heart. Notice how your heart feels. Connect with a sense of gratitude. And think of something or someone for which you're grateful. Or anything in your life you're grateful for. You may wish to silently within yourself say thank you. Allow yourself to connect with a sense of joy, a sense of playfulness or levity. Think of something or someone who brings you joy. A smile may come across your face. Visualize or feel light in your heart. This may be like a bright shining light like the sun. It could be a star. It could be a diamond or a gem or a chandelier or a campfire. Feel that light and warmth within your heart. Connect with a feeling of love. Think of something or someone whom you love. You may wish to silently say within yourself, I love you. Connect with a sense of compassion, the ability to sense or feel another's pain, sorrow, suffering, or joy. You may even feel compassion for yourself. You may wish to say silently within yourself, I feel you and I understand. You may even imagine sending love their way or to yourself. Feel gratitude, joy, love, compassion, sensing this light and warmth within your heart and your whole being and body. Feel the radiance of your heart opening. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the room. And I invite you, if you would like, to begin writing in relationship to your question and notice what words come. And keep writing. With as much information as you receive. Or until Dottie says we have to stop.
I'd just like to leave a couple of minutes if anybody has a burning question they'd like to ask you.
Yeah, we can just take another maybe minute with people writing. So get as much information as flowing to you about your topic or your question. You can, of course, continue writing on your own as well.
So maybe we could just ask if there is anyone that has a question to just put the question, raise your hand in the bottom of the screen there. Yes, Darlene.
Yes, thank you for that. What came up for me was a little bit weird. When you talked about compassion, what struck me was my difficulty with compassion is that I feel like it overwhelms me sometimes with other emotions like grief and sadness and helplessness. And I'm not sure I know how to make the transition from compassion to those three things. So
From compassion to, how do you mean?
when I think of being compassionate with someone, what comes up for me is usually feelings of sadness or grief,
I see what you're saying.
or
I see what you're saying. Right. So I would just invite you to be okay with that you have those feelings and to include feeling love for yourself and for them. That would be my suggestion.
thank you.
Does that help?
it's something I'm gonna have to,
Yeah.
hold it in its hand.
Yeah. I mean, you bring up a really good point because I think that sometimes people can feel sympathy or pity for somebody else versus like kind of holding them in your own heart. And you didn't say pity, but I'm just saying that that's other examples of what people might experience sometimes with compassion. And I would encourage you to maybe go deeper into your heart. I actually just recorded a Tonglen meditation on New Thinking Aloud. If you go to New Thinking Aloud, the YouTube channel, you might enjoy listening to that. It's about 20 minutes and it guides you to cultivate your compassion more deeply. And what I did with that meditation was that I created it so that you are first feeling love and compassion for yourself and actually being able to, because this is what mindfulness practice does too, that you're able to step back from sadness, grief, loss, while simultaneously bringing love and compassion to them. So it isn't necessarily that we need to get rid of those feelings, it's that they can coexist. But we want to be able to dive deep into the part that steps back from that in order to be able to be with them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
So
Thank you.
you're welcome, Darlene. On my YouTube channel, I have a mindfulness loving yourself meditation. I would encourage you to check that out and then check out the Tonglen meditation as well.
What is it
I'm s-
called?
It's called Tonglen, Tonglen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'll put the link in the email.
Yeah, and
That-
I also have on my YouTube channel a playlist to New Thinking Aloud. So there's a couple ways where you can, it's
Okay.
also, I put that on my website. I just posted that as well. Yeah, great question, Darlene. Thank you. Yes, and Paul.
Here's my question. I was working, I followed the meditation and everything that we just did. And I kind of explored some different thoughts. And then when it says, now write some of that down. And this is something I'm finding is happening more often for me. It scares me to death. I don't remember at all what I just did.
In the meditate, you don't remember the meditation part?
Right.
Okay.
I don't remember what the outcomes were. And I'm not sure what that is, whether it's a blockage or, but I don't recall.
Okay. Yeah, it may be that you're going so deep into a state of consciousness, kind of like when people talk about the dream experts, for example, will say that you want to write your dreams down right away in the morning before they disappear like the sun on the dew. So, but if you're even finding that making that transition is not coming out, one suggestion might be, and I don't know, is maybe to press record on your phone or something. So when you go into a meditation, maybe you could verbally share what your experience is. And then when you come out of your meditation, you could play it back.
That's a good idea.
Something to try. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then I would also encourage you to sense if you feel that there's some block or disconnect happening. Like, is there some part of you wanting to protect yourself from something, if that makes sense? And this is where you can use your intuition. And I bet you already know the answer to that on what may be happening with that.
That's possible. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for the question. Yeah. And I'm also curious, I know we're at our time, but can I ask a question really quickly?
Sure.
Ron?
Yes.
I'm just curious, how was the second exercise for people? I know we did that. That was kind of a brief version. I'd encourage you to I'm getting thumbs up from Ron. Awesome. Any comment, more thumbs up. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm seeing smiles. Yeah, Paul?
I guess the one thing that I learned is, and this has been my life, I don't trust wholly.
Ah, there we go.
And it seems like whenever I, intuit something or kind of feel, I've always felt there's been a mind-heart connection, but as life comes, I've learned not to trust it.
Mm.
And
Mm.
subsequently, sometimes things don't happen the way I thought they would
Mm. Mm-hmm.
or should.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how one gets into trust
Mm-hmm.
or the role of trust and I guess you could say that maybe I'm blocking or I'm not willing. The mind's stronger than the heart.
Mm. Well, and in this case, there may be some past wound or grief or loss that wants attention. And that's where I was suggesting that as we move through those, so you mentioned the mind, but we also have associated emotions. And by healing the emotions, then new higher insights, new thoughts, and actually neuroscience shows us you can make new connections with the neurons so that you can have a fresh insight. And so I would suggest, if you haven't, to maybe consider, if you wanted, to work with somebody to get guidance to transform some of that, or maybe some healing with somebody who you feel you could feel safe with or trust. That would be my suggestion. And that's what I've noticed over the years, is that what you just shared, and thank you for being so vulnerable to share this with everybody, is that by healing that, then you can allow yourself to be more in the flow with your intuition.
Okay. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And also with that sense of trust, this is where I was saying that I believe that intuition is really synonymous with love. It's where is that love flowing in our life, and where do we feel that we are restricted from it, or we are blocking it within ourselves or from others. I think it was Rumi who said, your task isn't to seek for love, but to find all the barriers within yourself
Mm,
and to release those, something to that effect.
mm.
And we all have that. We all have, I believe we're all here to learn. One of the reasons we're here, I believe, is to learn to love, which is not always easy when we've had wounds and we've been hurt and we've been abused or neglected or rejected, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well,
If
I
I
know
can,
oh,
Paul, I also have issues with trusting my intuition. And what's helped me is to add a gratitude practice, and then to what was happening is we live and we've been ingrained with linear thinking in our culture,
Mhm.
and we don't get exactly what we're thinking we want, but what we do get is, like a Rolling Stones song, we get what we need. I can't help it. I don't know. It's an affliction. Anyway,
I like your affliction, Ron.
the thing is that if you can get to a point where it doesn't matter, Paul,
Mhm.
that you didn't remember what you were working on in the process, the repetition and practice of the process, that's why they call it a practice, I think will help that. It seems to have helped me to add a gratitude session in the morning and do that at the same time every day.
Interesting.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ron. That's great. Great advice.
well, we're at oh, Teresa has a quick question. I know what
Sorry, I know you need to get going, and I just want to say thank you. This has been really wonderful. Thank you to Dottie and to Emmy. And I'm just going to throw out one last thing, just really quick. But the thing that I've been doing that's kind of fun and it gives me just a little bit more confidence in my intuition is like before the Jeopardy starts, you know, and now we're watching that every night. Before Jeopardy starts, I look and I say, okay, is it going to be the left or the right or the center person who's going to win? And I wait for them to light up. And it kind of helps give me a little bit more, you know, confidence that I have some intuition.
Cool. So you actually are successful. That's awesome. What a great, I wouldn't have thought of. That's a great example. Thank you,
It's,
Teresa.
is
it's just
just
silly and
practice.
fun. It's just silly and fun. And it takes me like a minute. And I'll do it while I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking, but I'll take a second and I'll go, which is it going to be? And I get it right a lot.
Good for you. That's fantastic. So good. So then Teresa, and maybe you already do this, but notice how you get that knowing, and then you can translate it over into other areas of your life as well.
Yeah, I'm going to translate it over to the Super Bowl next.
Or how about the lotto?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, well, I know that Emmy it's later for her than it is for us, and so I think we should finish our meeting. But thank you so much, Emmy. That was just wonderful.
My pleasure. It's
Really-
truly a joy to be with all of you. And thank you for the questions. It helps me dig a little deeper with you all asked really good questions that had me really do some good contemplation. So I'm glad I can assist, and I hope you all get a few takeaways that will help your life more, and that gives me a lot of joy.
Yeah, great. And I'll send out the links that you provided. The links to
good.
the meditations and the websites and all of that.
Thank
So,
you for doing
yeah.
that.
And I want to remind everyone, the class that Emmy gives is excellent, and it's based on her book, which is very well organized. I really appreciated it.
Great.
Thanks a lot, Ron. It was a great class. Yeah, that's recorded and available as a recording on my website at emmyvadnais.com if anybody's interested in learning more.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so
much.
much. And thank you everybody for coming and participating. And we'll see you all next month. And blessings, Emmy.
Thank you. Lots of love, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.